But alternative teaching licensure, he is not for that. And I'm not surprised. The reason he's not for that is because, again, he's a union negotiator for Education Minnesota. And Education Minnesota is against that. Now, this program has bipartisan support. Okay, so both sides of the aisle think this is a great program. Well, here's the thing. For the people who don't know what that program is, what they do is they take the top 5% of college graduates in education and say, hey, look, we will pay for your college tuition in return for working years in this underprivileged school district. And we will sponsor you to do that. That's a wonderful program. Now, what that does is a school district gets a great teacher that they never would have gotten. They get an opportunity to build a strong program. That teacher's motivated because they know, hey, this program is paying for my college education. You know, so guess what? That money can go where? Somewhere else. They can start, you know, working on their own life. And they've done this for things like when we were short of physicians, when we were short of other critical jobs in society. The military has done things like this. These programs work. But it's troubling that, you know, again, he's against it because it challenges the monopoly that Education Minnesota has. And we all know they're one of the strongest lobbyist groups at the state capitol. And just one more thing on Education Minnesota. I'm also very troubled by the fact that, to be honest, that Tom Tilbury serves as a representative and still is a union negotiator for Education Minnesota. First off, as a representative to begin with. That to me is a huge conflict of interest. Okay. Second of all, he also serves on all the spending committees, of which one of them is the K through 12 Finance Division Committee. So in essence, someone who already has an agenda is in that seat making decisions, forming bills, being a manager of how that money is spent and collected, that clearly is in Education Minnesota's camp. And that conflict of interest to me, if I was the voter, I would be, this is not right. So now where I come in is I'm a parent. I have two children who I love very deeply, two boys. They're both in the school district in two different schools. One's in Westwood, one's in Woodcrest. And I want to see a great education for them, and I want to see our education dollar being used wisely. Okay? There's no agendas to it. It's about good school programs for my district as well as the state as a whole. And I think that's healthy.
I've met your boys. I can vouch for the fact they're delightful, wonderful children. You. Fine job.
Thank you. I'm very proud of them.
You have good reason to be proud of them too. That conflict of interest, though, with the guy you're running against, that makes me so angry as a voter. They're clearly not, he clearly is not looking out for the people of Minnesota. He's looking out for his own best interests and the special interest that he's in their pocket.
Well, that's just it. And, you know, I was really surprised when I was first asked to run, and I just kind of took a look and you know, checked in, because one of the things that you always should do is be aware of, you know, the gentleman that you're running against. And when I saw that and I did more research on that, I was very disturbed, because in essence, what we have in our current representative is a lobbyist with voting power sitting in our seat.
Exactly right.
Yeah. And how shameful is that? You know, I don't care how nice a person you may or may not be. That to me is just wrong. That's something that needs to get corrected.
Immediately.
Immediately.
November 2nd.
That's right. That's what I'm saying.
November 2nd. Let's talk about the third topic that you are hearing a lot about on the campaign trail, energy. Energy.
You know, that's another interesting contrast between myself and Mr. Tilbury. Mr. Tilbury is about special interest energy. He's kind of bought into the whole cap and trade, global warming, all of that, which, again, I find very distressing on a number of levels. The first level is the fact of global warming, the science just is not there. You have a field that about 14,000 professionals work in across the world. I'm not talking, you know, your local biology or high school teacher. I'm talking about people who work specifically in climatology and have the degrees and the experience to back it up. Out of that 14,000, we're listening to about 200 people that have an agenda. So about 1.4% of the people are doing all this rant. Now, the people in my district are very savvy. So for the most part, this isn't even a question for them. Okay, they're like, global warming, no, I don't want, I know, and I'm glad you're not for it, Dale. But for those who would be curious, I would invite you, go to the internet, research yourself. The information is there. All it requires is a little bit of your time, and it doesn't take a lot of your time to find it. But getting back to the issue, he's bought into the global warming. He's bought into the special interest energy, and the problem that I have with the idea of cap and trade or adopting anything like it is that kind of legislation is about punishment to good law-abiding citizens and good law-abiding businesses. I'm about empowerment. Okay, we need good constitutional laws that promote liberty and freedom and empower people. Okay, so now let's go back to energy. Everybody agrees, and I agree, I am all for renewable energy that is clean, but it needs to be economical, it needs to be practical, and it needs to be applicable. Right now we have issues when, a lot of people like to talk about solar and wind and biomass fuels. Matter of fact, Mr. Tilbury supported a jobs bill where, and stimulus bill, omnibus bill, where they were talking about biofuels and so forth. And when you broke it down, it had little to do with real energy that Minnesotans were going to see. It had to do about serving special interests and extra costs we're going to see. And what I don't want to see is I don't want to see energy bills for the citizens in my district to go up by 50%, and that's conservative. I mean, if they buy into it, we could look at tremendously more expensive energy. And that's just not rational. So here's what I'm for. I'm for a common sense approach. We need a diverse energy portfolio so that if anything happens with the market forces, we still have a plan so that Minnesotans are going to be guaranteed good, solid, deliverable, economical energy. Second, there is nothing wrong with us developing and pursuing technologies that have proven to be economically sound for us. And if we do that, that's fine. And while we're in the stage of development, there are certain limited things I think that we can do, but not what we're seeing. I mean, we're seeing legislators down at the Capitol that seem to think that biomass fuel, solar, and wind power are going to solve all of our problems. And the reality is, no, they're not. There's only certain parts of the state where the wind power is going to work to the extent, because that's another thing too, once you get the energy, you have to trunk it out too. There's a cost associated with that. The biomass fuel is not there yet, and unless people are planning and have the means to buy very expensive solar units for their homes and can afford to wait 15 years for those solar units to be cost effective for them, we need to be looking at other things. So.
Well, I have news for you. Minnesota passed the most stringent environmental standards back in 2007. That's a piece of legislation that should be repealed, by the way.
Yeah.
And because of that, our energy costs have already increased about 30%.
I know.
Any sort of a national cap and trade, any sort of additional legislation at the state of Minnesota, I just want people to realize that every time they pay their electric bill.
Oh, I know. And you can see it there, too. They do their best to hide it. So it's like everything, a lot of people, they pay bills and they go, oh yeah, I got to pay this and stuff. But then when they see a bill that for the first time, hey, wait a minute, that's a little bit high. Then they start going line by line and then all of a sudden, hey, what's this? Where'd this come from? And you're right. That's very true. Actually, that's definitely one thing I did not agree with.
Oh, that was crazy. Hopefully we'll repeal that. I'd also suggest the legislators start looking at transmission lines too, because we have to have a way to transmit some of this stuff too. We're getting down to our last 5 minutes here.
Okay.
So I do want to hear, what would you like to ask the voters? You wanted to ask them, do they want more of the same? Or do they want something different?
Well, right, exactly. And I would actually add a total of 3, but I'll start with yours. I think that's what this whole election is about. Let's take a look at what more of the same would be. Okay, when our current representative took office 2 terms ago, we had a $2.2 billion surplus. We're now over $6 billion in debt. Every time he's voted to raise your taxes, voted to increase spending. And by the way, he's on the spending committees. Taxes, Ways and Means, Property Local Sales Tax, and K through 12. So he's not just a rank and file member. He is an architect for how this money has been spent, raised, and mismanaged. Okay, that's an important thing. Next, we've all been seeing the decline of our education from someone who supposedly is a pro-education candidate. But we know, if we take the time to look, that that isn't really what it has appeared to be at first blush. Instead, we've got someone with an interest. So that needs to be done. Basically, the bottom line is this. We've seen tens of thousands of jobs lost, unaccountable spending, and we've seen what 4 years of Tom Tilbury has done for us. You know, so I would suggest we need to stop using that same playbook that he's using and look at other ways to do things in a more common sense way. But I think something that I'd want to ask them is, one, do you feel that you're better off today, you know, the Ronald Reagan question, than you were 4 years ago?
No.
Exactly. That's my point. And finally, do we need another Tom Tilbury tax?
No.
Exactly. and you know, I think if...
See why I like this guy?
And so I think we've got a lot of smart voters out there, a lot of smart citizens. All you need to do is take a look at how he was against voter ID, how he's... Yes, he's against voter ID. And
80% of the state of Minnesota want photo ID to vote.
That's right, and he's against it vehemently against it. And you know, it's, to me, that is an integrity issue. Every Minnesotan's vote should count, but once. You should know that your elections are held, you know, fairly, and that your candidate had an honest and even playing field, whoever your candidate was. To me, it's a no-brainer. To him, however, he's very much against it. He voted against it. And he's voted against anything that's approached trying to work towards it.
We're going to change that. That's going to be something you're going to see in the next legislative session.
I hear you. I'd be happy to be a part of that.
I think you're going to be, because they have definitely had enough. In just 30 seconds or so,
okay.
Why should the people vote for you?
Well, I tell you what, if the people vote for me, it's going to be about a different relationship, okay? One of the things I've done all my life is I've worked very hard, and my parents were big on service and community, integrity, honesty. Be a sound person. Don't promise what you can't deliver, okay? What we have right now is we have a far enough relationship with our current representative. I want that to change. I want the people to feel like Thomas Jefferson's quote, "Government is best, of which every man feels himself a part." So that's what I want to do. I want to listen to the people. I want to have an open door relationship. I want them to feel that their representative is not only on their side, but their representative is on their team.
Oh boy, that'd be a pleasant change.
Well, that's
where do we go to get more information on you?
Okay, once again, it's Helm for House. So www.helmforhouse.com. I not only have a detailed bio on myself, you'll also have a bio on my parents, my family. You'll also have detailed stands on the issues. You'll also get, I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. You'll be able to see wonderful things we did. You mentioned the parades. You'll be able to see parade footage. You'll be able to see photos. You'll be able to see some other interviews that we've done. And I really appreciate this interview, Sue. Thank you so much. Yes, www.helmforhouse.com, and please feel free to ask me any questions you might have, send me any information, and if you would like to be a part of the Helm for House campaign, I'd love to have you. There's a lot of people out there that are coming and joining, but there's always room for one more.
Exactly. Best of luck in November.
Thank you, Sue.
Look forward to seeing you sitting in the chair in St. Paul come January 3rd.
Thank you, Sue.